Hey everybody, it's Andrew Brown from the AWS Cloud Project Bootcamp bringing you another video, and this time we are working through week 8 and because we want to serve our images or assets over CloudFront, because we don't really want to download our images every single time and then serve them up through the application. We want to put them in what is CloudFront? It is a CDN, a content distribution network. And so that is really the way we're going to have to do it. Now, our web application, our front end, is actually right now being served in a container. And we could actually be placing that onto CloudFront. The reason I did not put that into CloudFront was because when I was architecting my application, there was edge cases where it just would not work on CloudFront, but actually it might in the case that we're doing it. So we might re-architect it, but I was trying to just stay away from CloudFront because it takes so long to spin stuff up. But now that I'm thinking about it, we really do have to use it. So let's go ahead and use CloudFront. There is, of course, other CDNs that we could use like Fastly or other ones as such, but let's just stick with AWS because then we can write our CloudFormation code and our lives will be easier. But we are going to set up our CloudFront manually here. And the reason why is that when we get to our CloudFormation week, we'll probably separate our S3 and our CloudFormation bucket for our assets into its own stack. And so I just don't want to write CloudFormation right now. I want to wait for our CloudFormation weeks to do that. And so we'll just do this manually and we'll end up having to tear this down later on. So what we're going to do is go over to CloudFront and we'll just manually set it up. And, you know, we could also do this via the CLI. I think I'd rather just do this through here via the console so that we're just saving time here. And I know they've updated this recently, so I'm not too afraid of this being changed. So here we have to choose our origin domain. So it says choose an AWS origin or enter an origin's domain name. The origin is where it's going to point stuff to. And we want to point to our assets bucket, because we want to serve that up on assets.crutter.com. Do we need static website hosting? I don't think so, because we're not hosting HTML pages. We just want to serve some stuff up there. But when you are doing static website hosting, you have to change the origin a bit here. But we'll just choose assets.crutter.com here. Origin path, so enter a URL path to append to the origin domain. We don't need to append anything. We want to serve up against assets. Then down below here, we have the name of the origin. We'll let it be the default of what it is. We have a few options, public. Then we have origin access controls. Bucket can restrict access only to CloudFront. That is what we want to do. We don't want people to access things indirectly. So that's the way we're going to do it. In order to do that, we have to set up an origin access control. And so we'll go ahead and create one. Here it says you must update the S3 bucket policy. CloudFront will provide the policy statement after creating the distribution. So we'll have to remember to do that. I'm going to go ahead and create that control setting. And we have something like sign behavior, sign requests recommended. Do not override the authorization header. Sounds fine to me. And we'll go ahead and click S3. So we'll go ahead and do that. Sometimes you have to add custom headers, like passing certain things along. That would be something that we might run into if we were hosting doing static website hosting and hosting the JavaScript application. But since these are just static files, we are not going to have to do anything here. We are not going to worry about Origin Shield. That would cost money. It's an additional layer of protection. We have some connection attempts. We'll leave that alone. Compression we'll leave on by default. We really only want to use HTTPS, so we'll redirect HTTP to HTTPS requests, just in case someone types that in wrong. Not that anyone should be typing anything in, it should just be HTTPS. We only need get and head. We don't need options. We don't need all these things. We're not hosting a web application. Sometimes you'll want options, but we don't need that here. Restrict viewer access, so viewers must use CloudFront signed URLs or signed cookies to access your content. No, because the thing is that, I mean, it depends. So like, we don't need these to be private because we want them to be publicly accessible because this is a social media website. So we'll stay that as no. Then we have our caching policy. Remember, they changed this. It used to look like this. This is what I'm more familiar with, but we'll go through here and figure it out. So you create a cache policy and an origin request policy. They have some defaults here. So policy with caching enabled sounds good to me. And then down below here, choose an existing origin request policy. I hate cores, so that might be a good one here. Really depends on what we're doing. And we're going to be doing everything on the same domain. So I guess we should do cores because we really only want these images to be generally fetched on the website at the same domain. So cores seems like that's the appropriate one for that. And we can view these policies if we want to see what they do. I have done this once or twice, but again, I just know the old way more than the new way. So here, it's not really showing us all the information. Yeah, I remember you create these policies, we have more stuff to look at, so it's just not showing us anything of value there. But if we have to go tweak it, we'll know it for sure. Response header policy. I'm not sure if we have to really do anything there. Allow all origins for our simple cores. Allow all origins from cores request. We'll just leave it as cores simple. We are not streaming anything, so we don't do that. That's for video. I haven't done it in a few years, but streaming on CloudFront was painful to set up. The only way you could solve it or even have a working way of streaming was to talk to AWS and have paid support. Enable real-time logs. No, that's okay. Since people seem to be running out of their usage very quickly on the free tier, I'm just going to leave that off. We can set up a CloudFront function or Lambda Edge function. These are both similar to Lambdas to manipulate things on the way it comes in and out. We don't have to do any of that. We can, if we want to be cost effective, you can do for your own locations. I'm going to do for all everywhere in the world. We can set up WAF here. I don't need to do that. We can set up an alternate domain name, add a custom domain name that you'll use for serving this up. This is something we definitely want to do. So we'll say assetscrutter.com to serve up our assets. Let's see here. So we say add alternative domain names. That's not necessary. We will need to use an ACM certificate. Ours should show up here. Why is it not showing up? The certificate must be in US East 1. Okay, so since it's a global service, I guess it's serving everything up from there. So we'll go over here to ACM, and I guess I'll have to create one in US East 1, which is kind of annoying, but whatever. And I know some of you folks had lots of troubles with ACM, so have fun doing it twice, okay? I apologize, but there's no other way around it. We'll choose the public one here. I'm going to say crutter.com, and I'll add the wildcard here, wild.crutter.com, to just save us some trouble here. DNS validation sounds great. We'll request that. I'm going to refresh here. I'm going to click into here. I'm going to create the CNAME records. I'm actually just waiting for anything to show up here. It looks like it's still trying to validate something here. And is this already working? Because we've already validated it before. Yes, it is. So it looks like we saved ourselves a lot of trouble from the first time around. So that was pretty easy. We didn't even have to add the Route 53 records since they probably already exist from before. I'm going to refresh this, and now we see our certificate here. Don't checkbox this unless you want to pay a lot of money. We'll leave this alone to that. HTTP3 sounds great. I don't know how it works. There is no default root object because we're not hosting a website here. We'll keep the logging off. IPv6 can be on. And I'm going to put a description down here so we know what this is. So just say serve assets for Crutter. We'll create that. So the reason I don't like creating distributions is they just take time. Okay, so this is creating that distribution, so we'll wait for that deploy. Literally, we'll wait like 20, 30 minutes. I'm not kidding you. So just be patient here. Maybe it's 10 minutes, maybe it's 30 minutes. All I know is it takes a while, especially the first time around. So I'll see you back here in a bit, okay? All right, so I think I might have updated here. Let's go take a look here back at our distributions. Is it done? It is enabled. So The question is, does it work? How would we test it? Well, we do have this domain distribution name, so we could try this first. So if we go here, this should match our directories here. So we go processed, and then we say data.jpg. And so it says access denied. That's okay. There could be a good reason for that, but let's go try the assets now. So we'll say assets.crutter.com. Oh, by the way, it's avatars. Okay, so that didn't work. Let's go here, assets.crutter.com. And site can't be reached. So DNS probe finished NX domain record. So that's not as bad as before. But I was just thinking here that we probably have to point the distribution Route53 to the distribution or it won't work. So that's probably the missing part here. So let's go ahead and do that. And so we'll go over here. We'll go to our hosted zones. We will click into Crutter. We will create a record here. It'll be assets. We'll set an alias. We're going to choose CloudFront. We'll choose a distribution and we'll go here. We'll say create record. And so now we'll go back here and give it a try. Still giving us DNS probe issue. We can use maybe Firefox as a way of working around this problem. Okay, so up here I'm doing assets. Hit enter. And so this is good. It's telling me that it's going to CloudFront, but we'll just go here and type in avatars processed data.jpg. And we're still seeing an error here. Let's make sure that we're checking that path correctly. It's okay that we're getting access denied. That is a very common issue when we're working with this. Now, we didn't have to open up our bucket policies or public access because it's being routed through CloudFront, as long as, at least that's what I'm aware of, but we'll double check here and make sure that everything is correct. Right now, there are no assets in here, so that would probably explain why this is erroring out, at least in one sense here. We'll go up here and run our update script as we've been doing this entire time, or last time at least. And we'll go back over here, give this a refresh. In the avatars in the process, this now exists. We'll go back here, give this a refresh. Fingers crossed. Still doesn't work. Let's double check the path. So this is avatars, process, PROCESSED. I don't trust my spelling. I'm going to just double check here to make sure that it's 100% correct. Good. So spelling is correct. Data.jpg, still not serving it. So this is where CloudFront gets hard because it's hard to make sense of some of these permissions. So we'll go back over to CloudFront. We'll leave S3 open just in case we have to come back to it. And so we'll just have to carefully read through this here. So we'll go over here and we set up our origins. We do have some information behind behaviors. But our origin here, we will go ahead and edit it so we can take a look at it. So we choose here, that makes sense. Origin access control settings. Oh yeah, weren't we supposed to add a bucket policy? You must allow access to CloudFront using the policy statement. So we'll copy the policy. We'll go back to our bucket. We'll go into here, into Assets Crutter, Properties. And we'll go down to our bucket policy. And we'll edit our bucket policy. Well, hold on. It says right now here, public access is blocked because the block public access setting is turned on. So this is what I always forget, but I always forget that if we have to enable our public access bucket policy, but if it's go through CloudFront, I usually think you don't. But here you can see it's allowing CloudFront to have access for here. So we'll go ahead and save that. We'll go back over to Firefox because I don't trust Chrome right now for returning the right information. We'll refresh. And there we go. So yeah, we didn't have to set the bucket policy open, but you can see we have that. One minor issue is that we can access the original image. And it's not really a problem. It's just a matter of do we want to allow people to upload the original image? What if somebody uploaded a really large image and then started downloading that large image repetitively? That might be quite annoying. So we might want to limit this to not be for the originals and only for the processed. Another thing is that we could also have a bucket for images that are the original ones, and then the processed ones get dumped into here. That way that we're making a clear distinction between what we want to be publicly accessible and what we don't want to be publicly accessible. Because now what we have to do is set up permissions to lock that stuff out, as opposed to having it completely isolate in another location. So that is a technical decision that we can make. I'm not sure which one is the better one, but let me just think about it for a second, okay? All right, so I thought about it, and I think in some cases you can see the original. Let's go to Twitter just for a moment here. And what I'm going to do is just click on my profile, and I'll just click into this icon. I don't know. Like, the thing is that sometimes when you have images, you can click into them and get the larger versions of them. So I think the thing is, it's more so like, yeah, see, like here's Ken Collins' photo. If I go here and copy the image address. So it says large. What if we take that out? What happens then? So yeah, I guess it's just really a question of what we want this functionality to do. For the time being, I think what I'm going to do is just set an upper limit of what you're allowed to upload. But you know, it's possible that we should have a separate bucket here, and then only things that have been processed would show up. And also just think about like what people could upload. So if they upload something that's not supposed to be there, like that could be malicious, then that could give us another layer of security by having kind of a place where files sit before they move on to be processed for later. Because right now, as soon as you upload, they're in there. And it's not like we're checking them prior to them being uploaded. If we do upload the files, they would have to, there's two ways. We could directly upload them server side, or we could upload them client side. Client side would alleviate our Fargate application from having to take them on and then upload them again. But the Fargate app could then do additional checks. But you know, if we are uploading files from client side and we're dropping them directly into the bucket, I almost kind of feel like that is where we should probably have a separate bucket. So yeah, I think my decision is that we are going to have a bucket for uploads, and then there'll be a bucket for the assets that are being served. And that's what I think that I would like to do. So what I'm going to do is go back to our architecture here, and we did comment out this create bucket, but I think that we can keep this create bucket around. So what I'm going to do is just change this here, and we do have a bucket name, but I'm going to go to our env and we'll just say thumbing bucket. So I'm going to have one called assets bucket now. Assets bucket. We'll still keep this. We'll say assets bucket. I'm going to just say uploads bucket. I'm going to call it that. I mean, we don't have to call it that. No, I'm going to call it that. That's what I'm going to call it, uploads.crutter.com. And that's where our uploads will go, and then our assets will be served here instead. We can leave all these alone. I kind of wanted all this named thumbing so I could easily find these when we were to search them later, but I guess we'll just change that. So that will be those. I'm going to copy that over into our example here. Okay, and then what I'll do is I will go back to our here. I was surprised how easy CloudFront was. I was expecting it to be so much harder. So we have bucket name here, and I'm just going to change this to one is to be our upload bucket name, upload bucket name, and then our asset bucket name. We'll just say uploads assets uploads assets, and then we don't have to worry about what's in that folder. And the other thing is that if we upload the files to the first bucket, what we can do is we can say, okay, we could do post-processing and other stuff on them before it goes to the next one. So we can do that in our processing Lambda, or we could create another Lambda that just checks it for size or other stuff like that. I don't know. But my point is that I do want to separate them out. I think that gives us better flexibility, and it will be better for us down the road. So I'm going to go here and just copy, paste this, paste, paste, copy, paste, and paste. We'll go down below here and same story. So I'll go copy, paste, copy, paste, and this will be uploads bucket. This is assets bucket. I mean, this is bucket name, and we're not actually passing in the bucket. For the Lambda, we actually need both, I suppose. Yeah, we would need both of them. So I'm just going to bring this onto a new line. So this is just a bit easier to work with. And I'm just going to copy these names here. Like that. Yeah, we know there's a lack of arguments here. So create S3, notify to Lambda, create S3 to SNS. So the Lambda is when it goes into the original bucket, the uploads bucket. And then the asset is when it goes into here. And then here for the write policy, we actually need it for both. So in here, we'll need to do this. And then we'll actually have to copy it twice and do it again here. And then this is S3 read S3 uploads. This one will be assets. So yeah, even though like I thought about the architecture of this application ahead of time, and we had a lot of friends that are solutions architects and stuff like that, you figure this stuff as you do it. And that's the important part, is that you think about it. But when you're actually doing it, then you start thinking about those parts more in detail. So just, being a paper architect is not always the best approach. And that's why I give a hard time to cloud instructors that just say like, oh, you don't have to worry about implementation. You just need to know how to do this part, and then have someone else do the implementation. And that is ridiculous. The solution architect should be someone that has years of doing this. I have friends that they just serve as doing paper architecting, and they do have people that work under them, but like, it's still not the best for the customer or for your company. You should know what you're doing. Anyway, so we're going to add both of those there, and one's going to create the bucket, and the other one, it's not necessary to create it. So that makes sense. The bucket we want to create is for, let's just make sure that's correct here, the uploads bucket, that's right. And the assets buckets will be that. So let me just think about this for a second. So we need to look at the Lambda code here, because we now have two inputs here, right? So we'll just scroll up here for a moment. Yeah, and so we have these two. And so down below here, we have bucket name, but this is now going to be uploads bucket. And then we'll have assets bucket. I really wish we had name parameters here in TypeScript or JavaScript. We'll say string. That's great. And so there's the destination bucket name. And so the destination bucket is actually going to be assets. And actually, we don't need the upload buckets, because the upload bucket, it will know that because it will have that information pass into it. We are passing in here and doing nothing with this environment variable, so maybe we will need to use it later on. I'll leave it in there, but we could say like, oh, well, we are expecting the data to be coming from here. So, ignore it unless it comes from the source that we expect it to be from. So that might be something that we might want to set. But right now I'm going to leave it alone. What I want to do here is do a new CDK deploy since we've changed a bunch of stuff. Hopefully this just works because we are really mucking with the architecture. We'll go ahead there and hopefully that does not throw any errors since we did change a bunch of code. We do have an error. That's totally fine. There's already a construct name, etc., blah, blah, blah. There's already an assets bucket. Okay, that's fine. Let's see where this issue is. It might be because in here we have the actual names down below here. So if we go down below here into our crate and our import, yeah, see this? They're the same. So one is our uploads bucket. So I'm going to say uploads. And the other one will be that. Now, technically, again, this could be something that is like we could have made like a thumbing bucket or avatars bucket, and that would be where all of our avatars went. There is a limit of how many buckets you can have. So you can have buckets for up to 100 in your count. I'm just trying to think here. So we are going to be, I'm just deciding if I want separate buckets for different things because we have images that go into posts. We have images that go into direct messages. We don't necessarily want images that are posted into conversations to be publicly available. So those wouldn't necessarily go in the same place. But this pipeline is specific for, well, we might still want to serve them on assets, but they might be protected, or we might want to have a different CloudFront distribution with different rules on it. So I'm just trying to decide if I want separate buckets. Now in our account, we can have up to 100. It's not like we're going to have buckets for all sorts of things. There's just avatars, images and posts, and then internal images. I mean, if we did video, then we'd have it here, but I don't think we'd serve it on CloudFront. It's too darn expensive. So I think that it'd be acceptable to have separate buckets, and it would make our architecture very clear. So maybe we could put it in a separate bucket. Like not have uploads, but have like a bucket just for avatars and then another one for attached images. So I'm just trying to decide here what I want to do. I mean, we did call it uploads up here. Let me just decide. I'll be back in a second. All right, so I thought about it. And the thing is that imagine the site at scale. If we had a million users, that means we have a possibility of having a million avatars. Would I want to have avatars and other images uploaded in one place at that scale? Probably not. I'd probably want to have them in separate buckets. How many buckets could I possibly have? Well, we have avatars, and then we have images and feeds, and then we have images and direct messages. I feel like those could be in 3 separate buckets, and our lives would be a lot simpler. So you know what? I'm going to decide that I want these to be separate buckets. Now, I called this uploads bucket name, and that's okay. I just want to make sure that we rename this. So instead of having uploads, I'll just call this avatars. And we'll go over here and say avatars. And obviously, we're not serving our avatars there. I could just say upload avatars, I suppose. Now, this doesn't need to be public facing. So, I mean, we could just stick with this domain name structure if it just helps us remember our names. But we're never going to be serving anything from there. I'm just going to say crutter upload avatars. Uploaded avatars. Yeah, I think I'd rather do that. But for the other one, we will stick with that. So, because we'll have uploaded folders for other stuff. And so the other thought is that we will be uploading these things into this bucket. But the other part of it that matters is that we want to do something with these files. We might all want to hold on to these files forever, right? So they'll upload the original images. We will process them. But then we don't want to keep these images around. We'll want to delete them. So I think after an image is processed, we might even delete it right away just to keep our space small. where we might want to have images deleted after a certain amount of time. If we can do that, so can you set a TTL on images in S3? And I don't mean that, but I mean like until delete. Object expiration. So here it says object expiration is a new function that allows you to define rules to schedule the removal of objects after a predetermined time. I like the sound of that. So, but how do we do that? It's not even a new feature. I mean, it's just this lifecycle configuration event elements. I think that's all it is. Okay, so it's just a lifecycle rule, and that's something that we can set on there, and I think that's what I would like to do. So I'm going to rename it to that, and we'll go here and hit up, and we'll try that. And once this is done, I'll see you back here in a moment. Just hit yes, and then we'll make sure everything's working correctly. All right, so that deploy finished there. Now our script is not going to work exactly the same way. We called it serverless before, but now that I'm thinking about the folder structure, what we're handling here is our avatars. This is really it's image processing, but I guess the question is like, would our image processing pipeline look the same if it was for something else? So I guess the question is like, does this stuff make sense? This is building for Sharp. So this is really all for the avatar. So I'm going to call this avatar instead, so that the context makes more sense. Another thing is that when we change things in CloudFront, we do have to expire the cache or invalidate the cache when we're updating stuff here. So we might not see, well, we'll worry about that later. But anyway, my point is that this clear function needs to be changed. So here we have the domain name, which is fine, but for this one here, it's not assets. It's going to be Credder. What do we call it in the env file there? And where's the env file? It's in here. Here. And we called it Credder uploaded avatars, because I want to be, I could have made a domain, but I don't want to make it predictable because I don't need people to know what my bucket names are for my original files. Not that they'd be able to get access to it, but you know, when we can name it something they don't know, that helps a little bit. Where do we need this? In the clear. So here we will go here and we'll paste that in. Now we don't even need the avatars in original folder anymore. That's actually another change that we can make. So I don't really need to listen on a prefix for this anymore. So in here, yeah, but we should probably still put it in there just in case, you know, if we listen on everything on that bucket, that might be a problem. So I think we can leave that as is. That's totally fine. But what I want to do is make my way over to CloudFront or S3, and we'll see if those two buckets exist now. So we have, refresh this here. There it is, Credder uploaded avatars. So we'll copy this. We'll come back over to here in our upload. This no longer makes sense, so I'll go ahead and paste this in here like that. Okay, I'm gonna go to S3, make sure there's nothing in our assets directory, avatars. There's no longer original, so we'll go ahead and delete that. Technically, we don't even need to call it process because everything that's going to be in here is processed. But we will test it out here, make sure it works, and then we can tweak it, okay? So we'll go back over here. And what do I want to do? I want to upload. So let's go upload our file. Oh, it's not called serverless anymore. It's just called avatars or avatar. We'll hit enter here. We introduced an error here. We'll hit up. That'll upload the file. What we'll do is go to our assets directory here. We'll go back. And so that was added. So it's working. It's coming from original. Because if we go here, we can see the original was uploaded, right? And so that's great. So, you know, I do want folder structure at least one level deep, just so that we're not watching on the base bucket for those event notifications. I'm just trying to decide here. I guess we can just do it without it on a folder. I don't think there's actually any real danger for the uploaded one there, and we'll just keep our architecture a bit more simple. So we'll go back here and we'll make some minor adjustments. So what I wanted to do here is go into our ENVs, because we can probably just change it right here. And on this first one here, the input, which is actually on the uploads, it'll actually be naked. And then up here, this will just be on avatars for the output. And hopefully it will mess up with taking a prefix like that. It might just know that it's blank and we won't have an issue there. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and redeploy that. Before we do that, I'm going to empty out this bucket here, because I know it's going to complain if this bucket's not emptied. I mean, it might not at all, but let's just empty it anyway. Of course, we could have just ran our script, but I'm going to just manually do that here. And we'll go to our other one here, Crutter, assets Crutter. Go ahead and delete that. And now we'll go back over here, and I'll just go and run a CDK deploy, and hopefully it will take those environment variables changes without issue. And it has a problem. Yeah, no prefix set. So that's okay. What we'll do is go to our input folder, which is here. Where is it? It's on our Lambda watch. Yeah, we create the Lambda. Create S3 notify. Where the heck is it? Oh, here it is. And so it's just complaining about this. So you know what? I'm just going to take this out. And we'll just do that instead. We now really don't even need an input folder, because we're not using it. But we could have made some conditional code there to make it flexible, but I think I'd rather do that. So just give it a moment here, see if it needs us to confirm. And it's going, so I'll see you here in a bit, okay? All right, so our deploy is finished there. We'll go back over here and take a look at our folders, since we'll have to clear them out because our script isn't going to work the same way as before. Oh, we already cleared that out. Perfect. So what we'll do is we'll go back over here. We'll update our upload script. I know I'm fiddling with this stuff, but you know, this is what I do a lot. I try to get it to a state that I like. And we will go to upload. And so instead of original or even avatars, we will upload it directly like that. So we'll go straight to there. And so we'll do that and we'll hit upload. And so now what I'm hoping to see is if we go into, refresh here to assets, it goes into that avatars directory. So we go over here into Crutter. There it is. Did it trigger on the event here? Notice here that there is, yeah, it's there. It's on the put. But it must be the Lambda that's messing it up, because the Lambda still takes an input and output, right? Okay, let's check out the Lambda then. Serverless stack. here. We'll go to the monitor. It must have failed. So it says parameter cutter data here. Avatars data JPG for assets crutter. No, it says it did it. Let's go back and take a look. To S3. Maybe it is there and I just don't know. Nope, it's there. Okay, so now we have the structure we want. I would say that we're done for now. Now that we have CloudFront, we're serving it up and we've kind of reworked our tables a little bit here. The next step is integration. So we need to have a page where we can upload. We need to do client-side upload and finish that integrations off, and then we'll be in good shape. So I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.